The end of the year is upon us, so I thought I would make a video covering off the best creators for miniature sculptors and all of that stuff for the year. And I figured I'd try and be scientific with this. So it is broken down into sections. So we've got fantasy, then sci-fi, then D&D, and then onto your terrain. And the way I've done this is I've gone back through all of my lists for the years. So I do these videos pretty much every single month. I've taken them all down, written down how many times they appear, and then created a top 3 for each of those sections. So it's kind of scientific, obviously not, and it's all subjective and down to what I like. But anyway, let's kick it off with fantasy. And in place number 3 is Vae Victis, and that's kind of no surprise. They pretty much appear very consistently on all of my videos. They just make some really fun, whimsical sculpts. So again, if you're into fantasy, there's always different random stuff that they do. They always make like a pin-up style sculpt, but then they have like their infantry as well. The thing I really like about them is that they are either modular or they also come in like pre-built as well. So depending on how lazy you are, if you just want to print them off and not have to assemble them afterwards, you can do that. But then if you do want to have all the modular stuff as well, they've got all of that. They're just some great, fun, whimsical, fun prints. I've said fun numerous times there. But yeah, just a lovely little set. It's worthwhile checking them out every single month. In place number 2 is One Sin for Seven Kingdoms, or Beholder Miniatures. I never quite understand which one they are. But I love these. They have consistently been knocking it out of the park pretty much month on month on month. They make some really lovely looking fantasy sculpts and you cannot go too far wrong with these. They are really nice and detailed. And I feel like out of all of the creators that exist out there, they make probably some of the best for 3D printing sculpts. And that might sound weird, but what I mean by that is everything about their models, not only do they look good, but they are made to be resin 3D printed. There are some people out there who make some absolutely gorgeous looking sculpts, but when it actually comes to 3D printing them or playing with them on the tabletop after they've been 3D printed, they're just not very good because they're either too fragile or the pieces are really hard to print. These guys have thick shafts, like really thick shafts. Like all their weapons are thick. Everything about them is made to be resin 3D printed. But they don't look goofy, like they're not over the top. They managed to proportion it very, very nicely. And they just, I think, look fantastic. There's elves, there's dwarves, there's these new ones as well that look like all of like the new, why can I not remember their names? I really like them. Grand Cathay from Games Workshop. There's some absolutely beautiful stuff. They're doing some orcs, they're doing some goblins. Basically, if there's a type of army that you want, they will probably have it, and it's something worthwhile looking at. And they're close enough to like your Age of Sigmar stuff that if you wanted proxies, you could use them. But the thing again that I like about them is they don't just rely on ripping off stuff that already exists from like Games Workshop. They put their own spin on it, and they could definitely be their own unique armies as well. So I do love the art style and the way that they're made. And in place number 1 for fantasy, and this probably should come as no surprise, I absolutely love the sculpts from this company, is Highlands Miniatures. Highlands Miniatures, if you are into basically doing anything like old world, Warhammer Fantasy style stuff or anything like that, you probably already know them. They consistently knock it out of the park. They are always doing some fantastic looking sculpts, and I think they're by far probably one of my favorite creators just in the 3D printing space. They are amazing, they look great. They do a really good balance of capturing, I guess, that old nostalgic look from Warhammer Fantasy and Old World, but also combining it with new modern style stuff as well. So they're a really lovely go-between. They're just amazing sculpts. They've done a whole bunch of like Ratties and Skaven stuff this year. Again, if you're into that old like regiment style fantasy gameplay, they're worthwhile checking out. They are absolutely gorgeous sculpts. They come pre-supported and supported all of that as well. And the pre-supports are really good. I just have a lot of time for them. They do some really good stuff, and they definitely deserve that top spot, I think. Anyway, moving across onto fantasy, and in 3rd place is Wild Mesh. This was a bit of a surprise, but not as well because I've been massively into Emperor's Children this year. Wild Mesh have done a whole bunch of like, I guess, chaos style sculpts for like Warhammer Sci-Fi, but primarily it was the Emperor's Children stuff that drew me to them. They've done some really lovely looking Emperor's Children. They've done some like big old dreadnoughts, all like the infantry units as well, but they've also done some horses with big old penis heads, and these were just hilarious, and they were so typically Emperor's Children and just over the top and stupid and fun. They did a whole bunch of things. They did this dragon as well, which had 3 different types of head, and one of them was a big old penis head that you could stick on it. Again, stupid, but so much fun. and their sculpts look fantastic. I love all the demonettes. They've done a whole bunch of stuff, and now they seem to be moving away from Emperor's Children into other types of like Chaos armies. But again, they all look really, really good. And they look unique enough, they stand out, and they're great just to maybe grab a few pieces from them to put onto your army. Rather than printing off like a whole Emperor's Children army, you could grab a few things here and there, stick them into your army, and they just really stand out. I absolutely love them. Definitely worthwhile checking out. If you are into any kind of chaos for your Warhammer 40k, certainly worthwhile having a look at there. In place number 2 is a Wargame exclusive, and I was surprised by this, and it's only because only over the last few months that their name has really registered in my head. But before that, I think they were just coming up consistently and I had never really noticed. They do some really lovely sculpts. Every month, they seem to do a whole bunch of different things. If you go on it, there's no like consistency. It's not like they are known for doing Eldar style proxies or Chaos style proxies. They basically do a whole load of stuff that could go in with your Warhammer 40k. I do think sometimes they get a bit too close to the bone and they probably run the risk of being called out for that. So it's, you know, it's interesting. But some of their stuff is really unique and really nice. They're doing a whole bunch of like Primarchs at the moment. I've got this like Mortarion proxy that is currently work in progress that I also need to get painted up. Really, really nice sculpts, and they almost take an alternative, a different take on them. So like you'll get your, I guess, like pre-corruption Mortarion there, and like all the Primarchs, although they are like Primarch sculpts, and yeah, very much so Primarch sculpts, they're different to the GW ones. They're either in a different time period or before one of them's corrupted, for example. I really like that. They do try to do some alternate stuff, which is good fun. And they're beautiful sculpts. They're really, really nice sculpts. Very detailed, very well made. All the pre-supported models that I've played with so far have been fantastic. So really just lovely, lovely stuff. And in the top spot is Daka Daka. And again, a bit of a surprise, I think, because every month they're just consistently putting out good stuff. But it never kind of registers in my head like, oh yeah, they're absolutely fantastic. But they're really good. I've printed quite a few things from this. I did some like Imperial Guard horses, which came out really, really nicely. They do all their rats in space as well, and you can't go wrong with like Skaven in space. And I love that. They do a whole different style of stuff. Again, if you want 40k proxies, yes, absolutely could use most of these things as 40k proxies, but they do different things in there as well. They did these like almost corrupted Sisters of Battle, which could definitely fit either being non-corrupted Sisters of Battle, or they could be corrupted Sisters of Battle, because the sculpts looked, they could go either way, depending on how you painted them and presented them and stuff. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff, and they're really, really nice. The pre-supported stuff always works really nicely as well. The only thing I will say is, like on my little horses, their spears and stuff were a little bit too thin, but you can get around it if you're just a little bit more careful with them. But absolutely lovely sculpts, a whole bunch of stuff depending on what sort of thing you're into. Anyway, moving across on to the next one, and that is D&D. And in third place for this is Arc Villain Games, which just historically make amazing stuff. Arc Villain Games are a really interesting company because they do obviously all the D&D side of things, but their models and stuff, they almost look like they're computer game assets or something like that. They're ripped out and then put onto a tabletop because they are so detailed and so beautiful, which in a way can be off-putting, because if you're then printing those off and you're thinking, oh, I want to paint them, oh wow, they have a lot of detail for them. But at the same time, I also think it's quite a good thing because there's so much detail that with these models, you could print them off and basically just Zenithal prime them, or even just prime them in black or something like that. You don't need to do much, and they look amazing. So you can literally print them all off, spray them all in black, give them a dry brush of white or something like that, and then you've got tabletop pieces, and you can get them onto the tabletop really quick with very minimal work and don't have to paint them. Or if you really wanted to paint something, they make some amazing stuff that will look absolutely fantastic as part of like an army or a D&D campaign or whatever you want to use them for. They're just great. They're absolutely beautiful sculpts each month. Anyway, and next up, and this one might not land well with some people, might land, because I always say it's very subjective with these, but Cast and Play is in number 2. And I love Cast and Play. I think they are consistently doing some amazing stuff. Cast and Play have a very interesting art style in the fact that it's quite cartoony, but it doesn't look stupid or over the top. I think that you could still use a lot of their sculpts in different types of campaigns, in different types of fantasy army, for example. I think they do a really good job of balancing that unique cartoony art style that they've got going for them, but without going over the top for it. And the thing that always impresses me, month after month after month, they do different like animal themed packs, for example. Like they had one which was like turtles and one that was lizards. And you think on the face of it, it's like, oh, well, there's only so many things you can do with like turtles or lizards. But no, they managed to make them all look really unique. Like all their sculpts inside like the turtle pack looked fantastic, and like the lizard pack looked fantastic. They had like all your different rogues, wizards. They always have different like character classes and stuff like that you can use for them, and they always look different. And then for like Halloween, they had this zombie pack, and they somehow again made it look quite horrific without going too over the top. They're very, very clever. I think got some amazing sculptors and designers over there that are doing some great stuff. Anyway, moving to the #1 spot for D&D, and that is Mammoth Factory Games. And again, they consistently come out pretty much every single month when I'm doing these recap videos, and they make some great sets, do some great adventures, some great sculpts and everything. But the thing that really sold it for me this year was they did a whole like fairy tale and Disney inspired set. They did like a 6-month run of it, and they were fantastic. I really, really, really enjoyed that set. I think it was amazing, and it showed off like the talent behind the team at Mammoth Factory, or the designers and the sculptors and everything. They really, really got to run with that and do some great stuff. It's not to say that their other stuff isn't good. Their other stuff is still fantastic. But it was just so much fun, and their different takes on the different characters that exist in those franchises and stuff, and how they turn like some like the princesses into some of the villains and some like the heroes into villains and stuff was just great. I had a lot of fun printing and painting up the Beauty and the Beast inspired stuff, and that was great. I really, really enjoyed that. They're very, very detailed sculpts. They don't go to the extreme of something like Art Villain Games. They're a really nice go-between, so that way they're still easy to paint. And I think the big thing that stands out to me from Mammoth Factory Games, because I mean, ever since my early days in this channel, have covered Mammoth Factory Games, and I've had a decent relationship with them as well, where they sent stuff over to me. So, you know, let's be clear about that. But the big thing that has changed with Mammoth Factory Games is that they have gotten so much better at printing for tabletop. So previously, you would have some of those, that, you know, let's be honest, with D&D especially, because they have a more realistic scale, sometimes those weapons and stuff can just be a nightmare, and they'll snap as soon as you just look at them. And Mammoth Factory Games suffered from that in the past, whereas now they are making and sculpting for tabletop, so the weapon like shafts are thicker, the weapons are bigger, they're a bit more heroic scale and proportion, and that just translates so much better onto the tabletop when you're resin 3D printing. So their improvement in sculpting and design is just great. They absolutely do deserve that top spot, and I had so much fun with all the fairy tale stuff. I hope they revisit that, because it was a lot of fun. Anyway, moving across onto terrain, and first up we have Dark Realms. So that is in 3rd place, Dark Realms. And again, they have just done a whole bunch of stuff, and the nice thing, I guess, about Dark Realms is they'll normally run for like 3 months or so, doing basically an expansion on a pack. So they'll do like a pack here. They've got these ones that are this, is it Muddy Ford? I'm probably butchering that, but basically it's all like swamp type buildings. And then the month after they do like swamp type decks and docks and everything. So they'll normally do like introduce a theme, and then they'll expand on that for a couple of months, and then move on to something different. They also do miniatures as well, which I know obviously isn't part of the terrain bit, but they did these like Roman inspired Imperial Guard, which I'm really tempted to do for my like Ultramarines army. But yeah, just a really good set. Every month they seem to come in with a nice looking set. They're very detailed. They work very well for FDM and everything else, so can't go far wrong with that. In the #2 spot is Sci-Fi Factory. I'm probably butchering that again as well, but they do, again, really consistently do a set of sci-fi and a set from fantasy each month as well, so depending where you sit. I always feel like their sci-fi stuff is better than the fantasy stuff, at least in my opinion. But the fantasy stuff is good. Like last month they did a whole bunch of destroyed tanks and everything. They do a lot of things like scatter terrain, which is always good. It's always stuff that's quite easy to print and almost veers on the side of being quite simplistic, which might put some people off. But I think sometimes when you want to have some terrain to mix up, I don't know, like your quick skirmish game or a big battlefield game, you want to do something that's quick and easy. They really nail it. They clearly have 3D printing in mind when they're designing these, because they're all designed to work with 3D printers, which sounds silly, but sometimes you can look at terrain pieces and you go, how many supports am I going to need on that? Or how do I have to cut it or slice it to make it work on a 3D printer without it just failing? These historically and consistently do a really good job of making stuff that is just going to be able to download, put onto your slicer, press print, and not really think about it. And then you've got something that's quick and easy to get onto the battlefield. So really well done for them. I really like their stuff. And in the top spot is Forbidden Prints. And again, very similar to Tali Factory in the fact that they just do a whole bunch of random stuff. There's a load of stuff that you can do for like almost scatter terrain. A lot of stuff that will look good and fun on the tabletop. And it's mostly made for sci-fi, which, is fair enough. But like here, for example, they did this big old like Necron style gun. But again, it looks like it'd be quite easy to print rather than some of the other stuff that exists out there. So again, a lot of stuff here that's clearly been designed in mind of making it easy to print, easy to use, easy to put together. A lot of it works with like open lock as well. There's a lot of different designs. They don't stick to just like, oh, we're going to make Necron style stuff. It tends to be, they'll flip between things. So you'll have more like Gothic inspired buildings, and maybe you'll have something that's more alien inspired. I believe there's some like Tau inspired stuff as well. So there's a lot of things out there available. So that is my recap for the year when it comes to 3D printing and some of the incredible creators out there. This year's been a lot of fun covering all of these. There's always so much out there. Throw down in the comments, who has been your standout for this year? Who has been like your top fantasy creator, your top sci-fi creator, terrain creator, and D&D creator? It's always interesting to hear from you guys because there's sometimes some really random ones that I've just not noticed when I go through these things every month. And I try to go through the list right from like the top end to like the top, I guess, subscribed to, right through to the bottom ones as well. So I do get to cover a lot of them. But I'm really interested to know what you guys think as well. And also, do you think my coverage from the last year basically encompasses the right ones there? There's some amazing stuff, and I feel as though 3D printing at the moment is getting so good because there are so many incredible creators out there, and they're doing some amazing stuff. So thanks so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed that. Hit the like and subscribe button because, as always, it really helps the channel to grow. And if you can share this video in any groups you're part of as well, that's always appreciated. In the meantime, happy printing, happy painting, and I will see you in the next one. Ta-ra!